Hey everyone, Rich Hall here. I work with a lot of service providers when providing solutions like exit planning for our clients. One of them gave a presentation recently to a mastermind group that I facilitate. His name is James Bulmahn with Hunger Media. And he gave the presentation on branding, storytelling, and content development. But what was so unique about it was that he did it in the context of what you can do yourself with tools that exist out there like Canva and other products. And it was really a blast. So I'm going to show it to you here on this video. I hope you enjoy it. Make sure and give us feedback. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Rich. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to tear right in. But if you do have questions along the way, please, by all means, ask away. I don't mind. I think it's better at just at the point of context to answer the question. So I'll just go into some objectives for today. We're going to define the concept of brand filters and their role in shaping a brand's identity. Explore brand filters and how they can enhance the relatability and establish emotional connections with your audiences. Cover how to accomplish brand identity and content development in line with your brand filters. We're going to explore Canva from the standpoint of Rich as a case study, but it's a very cost-effective tool that can really has radically transformed content creation. And then we're going to discuss basic qualities of good content and the objectives behind them. And then also how to define content types to drive consistency. And then understand the power of storytelling and translating your brand filters into relatable narratives that resonate with your audience. Okay, so I worked at Eastman Kodak. I'm in Rochester, New York, which is between Buffalo and Syracuse, and the Buffalo Bills lost. But we were a very large company. I don't at its height in the late 1980s. Kodak employed 68,000 people locally. It was huge. I had very fortunate to work there. Had a really nice corporate experience, and but like many companies during the 2008 timeframe, we had a really rough patch. If you think about it, everybody from the 90s, right, was shooting film, getting double prints. All that went away, right? You get the iPhone uh, into the mix, everything going digital. Kodak had to pivot, and we pushed and pivoted to commercial printing, but we really lost our way and lost our brand in many different ways, actually. We removed our old logo form. We went to a black look back then. I don't know if you remember, but Apple had that like black fade look, and everything was really slick on black. Sony also went with that kind of color scheme. Everything at that time in the early 2000s went very digital and tech, and that was us trying to be that. And these ads are also from 2014. We really hit like a really downward spiral with our brand. You can see from these ads, right? Not very inventive here or creative. Like the one on the far left, David likes money. Doesn't everyone, right? All that glitters is gold. It just wasn't. We were in a slump with our brand, and then only a few short years later, in 2014, we went into Chapter 11, and we had some new management come in. We had a new CMO who really cared about creative and really turned things around. And we got to work with an agency out of New York City called Work Order. They really took the brand, worked with my internal creative team that I was managing at the time, and they started honing in on what they called brand filters. And this was my first exposure to this. And the four that we settled in on were authentic, yellow, magical, and optimistic. And as you know, Kodak has traditionally been a yellow brand. And you could see that we had ditched that. We also had a beautiful logo form that had many years um, of use and brand equity in it, and we had ditch that for a simple logo type. Also, um, we weren't really authentic to ourselves anymore. We were really good at material science and other things, not just digital. That was very powerful. But also, I loved optimistic and magical. Those really worked really well and really tried to pivot us and have a better outlook for the future. And then things started to change. This was a little bit before we had revamped the design system. You can see we're using more yellow, putting positive messaging, that print for good campaign that you see there. But it really turned things around, and it was a beautiful time. Then we moved into, okay, we're going to bring that old logo form back. We're going to really come up with a design system that could work with both our B2B side, which was our commercial printing, and then also we still had a consumer division, but a lot of it was done through licensees. But we needed a design system that would be flexible, easy, and then serve both equally as strong. And then it was amazing because then magical things started to happen, right? We were honing in on that filter, we were focused on it. And then now we had Opening Ceremony, which is a really high-end clothing company, want to do a collaboration with us. And it was just wonderful. We brought back a lot of the old 90s designs. And then I couldn't believe this, but Girl Skateboard wanted to do a skateboard line, a deck line based on our Super 8 packaging. And this was wildly successful, and it was the hottest selling and fastest selling deck line that they had ever had. And it was just great. Those ads that I showed you before, how did we go from, those cruddy old ads, right, to this? And it was because of those filters. It got our whole internal design team and marketing team, the whole CMO aligned, and we did not quit until we were fulfilling and living out those filters. So what are brand filters? With the aid of ChatGPT and my own direction, I developed this. Brand filters are a set of core attributes, values, and qualities that guide how a brand is projected and experienced, shaping its identity and fostering relatability and an emotional connection with its target audience. So a lot of us here, right, we might be a solopreneur, an advisor, we may have our own company, but a lot of times we just throw out our product or service and tell exactly what it is and nothing more. And we expect, okay, well, the audience should just get it, right, and want to work with me. Well, a lot of times that's not enough, right? You're not really building any emotional connection. Yes, you're maybe clearly stating what you provide as an offering or a service, but there's really a different way and a different way to look at it. Um, you could develop a set of brand filters that really tap into the audience's emotions, perception of you. You highlight your uniqueness. Why are you different? Your tone of voice, visual identity, all in line with your brand filters. And then your audience experiences your product or service through those filters, right? And have an emotional reaction or a perception that you craft, not so much their own reaction based on just seeing what you offer as a service. Now, there's a really efficient way to go about this, right? To really develop this, like, how do I get to the end point where I'm creating content in that manner and it's in line with my brand filters? Well, you start with your brand filters, and you can see I have this diagram where your brand filters kind of envelop your visual identity, and then you create your visual identity, and then once you get these two locked, then develop your content strategy, and then it'll be in line with the brand filters, and you'll get that emotional connection with your audience. So we have a little case study, Rich.hall group. It was great. As Rich mentioned, I worked with many in my other mastermind group, and it's been a wonderful experience because not only it feels good to help, but also I'm dialing in a nice offering that is very efficient, and I keep getting more and more efficient with it, with testing it with some of the members of the group, and I'm also using AI to help expedite things, and then also using a tool, Canva, to make things cost effective and a great platform to collaborate with the client. But I started the process with a questionnaire. So these are just some simple questions that I asked the rich, like why did you start the business, your mission, what is your why, who do you serve and help in this world, our brand personality. If our brand was a person, what kind of personality would they have? How are we unique? How are we different? What do we do better than anyone else? What are the beliefs and values that are important to us as a company? What makes us special? If we could describe our brand in 3 to 5 words, what would they be? And what are the 3 to 5 words we want our customers to use to describe us? I've been through a lot of different brand exercises, and I've seen a lot of different forms. I wanted to make this very simple, and with a lot of brand projects, I've distilled it down to these questions. And then now I've been actually just recording the client on the other end using Read AI, and then I can bring that transcript right into ChatGPT and start to develop my brand filter process. But this was very effective. I got some great answers out of Rich. And you can see I broke it down into the sections that I before on the previous diagram of emotions, perceptions, uniqueness, tone, audience, and visual identity. So as I mentioned before, visual identity was the next step, right? And we wanted to uh, develop a nice, clean design and corporate feel for Rich's uh, content. He wants to come across as the expert, right? He's working and dealing with business owners and people who are in leadership. So we definitely wanted to remain not only that corporate feel, but very aspirational. But there's also nice qualities of Rich, right? He's very informative. He's the expert. He's an authoritative, but also very friendly and approachable. So we started to develop that visual identity next. And I just want to mention, really, this is really important. Human beings are hardwired for pattern recognition. It is key to our survival. When things are consistent, it cultivates trust. If you are on a feed or a website and things are sloppy, inconsistent, even colors just slightly shifting or off, different fonts, messy alignment, things like that. I know I'm bringing up a lot of design elements, but also even just tone of voice, and just with how you're presenting maybe multiple product lines. Really, if you can remain consistent, you can drive that trust with your customer. So this was Rich's content before, and I have to hand it to him. I mean, he delivered, and he was striving for consistency and whatnot. But I mean, at the same time, was he really hitting that new set of goals that we had set? And we both agreed, and we were talked about it, and we were like, okay, let's work on your visual identity next. And I just want to before we dive into that, I just want to talk about Canva just briefly. It's a great tool. If you're not on it, I encourage you to get on it. It's amazing. It's stocked with a bunch of templates. I'll admit I was a design snob for many years. I was Adobe products. When this product first came out, I was just like, oh, geez, who would use that? It's for people that can't design, right? But I mean, 10 years later, I'm working in Canva because a client asked me. He's a lawyer out of Nashville, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, I cannot believe how fast this is to accomplish and create things that would take me much longer in Photoshop. And I just wanted to read Canva's mission statement. I just thought it was beautiful. At Canva, we believe that design should be accessible to everyone, no matter where you live, what your socioeconomic status, or even computer experience. That's because design is a critical skill that enables you to achieve your goals. And I just think that's a really beautiful, lofty mission statement, and they're achieving it. I mean, they're competing with Adobe and crushing Adobe in this space, in my opinion. Adobe has responded with, Adobe Express, but I don't think it's nearly as good. Um, So in Canva, you can set up your brand. So I helped Rich and other members of the group do that. It was very easy, very fast once I got, even better at it, and I did a few of them. But what's nice is then you really lock in on very key things, right? Like your color, your logo, your fonts. And what's amazing is once you set up your brand, you can select any template, hit one button, and then it'll apply all your brand colors. Hit one button, it applies all the fonts. And so I started working with Rich. We started, make dialing in that blue, making sure it's consistent with the logo. But then also, you can see Rich's logo down here is angular, boxy, and we kind of went with boxy forms. So, there is a little bit of a design system starting to take place and some decisions made regarding that. Rich told me that, once we started creating a couple videos and some posts, he got some great engagement. People in his audience um, were responding favorably. He started getting a little more, comments and whatnot, and it just felt great, right, to see that change. And what was nice too is really I just helped Rich to a certain point, right? I put in the brand and got him, consistent, but really Rich helped architect this and also create much of this content in conjunction with just some of my design guidance, but really he did it on his own, and that's the power of Canva. Um, and just looking back at like what he had, right? It's not just about design either, right? There's some really good um, messaging starting to take place, with Legacy Matters, putting the audience, right, of small business owners and helping them with plan, not only for success, but also exit planning. Um, Putting people there, right? It's just much more emotional, and a connection can be made. And then also a narrative starts to establish. So the next step, right, after you do your brand filters and then your visual identity, the next step is content strategy. Um, and this part is really about identifying content types. So here's an example of a lawyer that I have, a client out of Nashville. Um, he loves writing his blog. Um, he has these different services where he's a fractional CLO, and then also some group coaching. He also, this is his third book, so he wrote that, and then also, testimonials. So you can see I'm starting to dial in some content types here, but then I'm also holding it together brand-wise, right? I'm staying consistent with the colors of black, red, and white. I'm using the same font throughout, and using relatively same platform shapes, like with the rectangles. And then the next example is an accounting firm in my area. They do a balance of both business and personal individual taxes. And so I wanted to start working. I'm still working through their content, but here's a few examples. Here's like a simple announcement. Here's something on the individual side. Here's something for business. And again, we got another testimonial. And then also, he liked the values so much, he was like, you know what, why don't we do a set of those? So we're doing a set. But you can see all this holds together. And it's again, why, color, font, and then basic shape and logo, all remaining consistent. And then the last example that I have here is a realty company that I have in town. And they also love the values, so I did a set there. We also have animated testimonials where these come out and animate, and then we go to a branded bumper. If any new member joins or new agent joins the team, we highlight that. Holidays, also any buy or sell celebrations, and of course with a realty company, you got your new listing and under contract and sold and all of that. So But again, all of this holds together and is consistent. So with Rich, we sat down and we were like, okay, what are the different types of content types for you? So Rich came back with these. He said, stories with a meaning, educational pieces, maybe snippets or quick tips, reviews, either from Google or LinkedIn, case studies, articles and blogs where he's reacting to an article or a blog. And then also he says that he does a lot of videos and presentations sometimes. They're recorded over Zoom. And then maybe that could also be a piece of content. So what I did is I just gave some recommendations on the right-hand side. You know, use a story arc when you're, trying to tell those stories. And I'll go into that in a little bit on narrative. Also with the short tips, make them from your process, highlight and your expertise and knowledge. And then also with the snippets, be sure to position the knowledge coming from you. I see a lot of people, they'll go and they'll find some really good information and they'll just kind of like put it there and state it, the fact real simply. But you can twist that language around and state, well, when I'm in that problem or when that issue arises with the client, I do X, Y, and Z, and to make you look like the expert. Also, with the reviews, highlight ones that reinforce your brand filters and have all your filters represented when you're having a series of testimonials or reviews within the rest of your content. Also, with case studies, I loved Rich's comment. I wish I had more of them. I don't have any. Well, we all have to start somewhere. So I just said, hey, you could create some scenarios and then explain how you would respond and drive results within that scenario. And there's nothing wrong with that because that still tells the truth of what you would do in that situation. And then until you get that big win or a really nice case study, then start to flow that out and put that in your content. Articles, blogs, and blog posts. Not only things maybe that you create, but maybe there's articles and things that you react to. So you don't just passively share that. You conveniently summarize it, give your reaction, explain how it aligns with your process, and then how you even go beyond. And then videos and presentations. If you're in there, it's the great time to express your brand filters, remain consistent with your content and how you project yourself, not only on your website, but then also in your social feed. And then when they watch that, it'll be right in line with all your other content. I covered some, but I'll just go over some qualities of great content. You want an authentic expression of your brand filters whenever possible. Again, that's going to bring that more of that emotional connection and how you want them to emotionally connect with you. But then also clarity. I really can't emphasize this enough. There should be zero confusion on your product and offering. And if you're creating content that maybe like confuses that, I think that's a big no-no. Like you really should just make it very simple to easy to understand what you offer and how you can help people. Then also customer benefit. If whenever possible, lead with the customer benefit or pain point your product aims to solve. And then also whenever possible, use narrative. Because if you think about it, when we go to social media, we go there for two reasons mainly, right? We either want to be educated or entertained. And then the last, have a clear call to action. Connect with me, schedule a consultation, link to the website or link to a landing page. So I want to go into like the emotional side. Like you're probably thinking like, all right, how can I make that emotional connection, right? Um, so I love this Jeffrey Gitmer quote, the sale is emotionally driven and emotionally decided, then it's justified logically. And I agree with this. Like you normally like, hey, do I like this person? Am I emotionally responding to them? Do I feel comfortable? Am I enjoying this brand and this product offering? Do I trust it? And then once those emotional connections are made, then you're like, okay, do I have the money? Okay, I guess I can maybe move things around and make it happen. But again, people want to emotionally connect. And how do we do that? So there's a very popular empathy map that many use, and I use it as well. A lot of times I'm instantly just thinking of these things, not when it comes to the target audience, but really it's important to ask these questions. What do they think and feel? What do they hear? Like, what are they hearing from others in the industry? What do they say and do? Who are they? And then what do they see? And then I really can't emphasize this enough. When you really want to emotionally connect with your audience, there's three main areas. And if you think of any piece of advertising that's successful, it's hitting on one or all three of these. First is empathy, right? You're putting yourself out there emotionally and you understand them, and empathize with them. And it doesn't, I think when we think empathy, a lot of times we think, oh, like a bad situation, like, oh, I empathize with you. But also, hey, I'm there to celebrate your success. Or this is what success means in your industry, and we can get you there. Um, and then also the familiar. I can't underestimate this enough. Not only familiarity within the industry, but then also nostalgia, right? Or just looking back. That's a very powerful um, emotional connection, something that someone's familiar with. And then also authenticity. And this is both sides, right? Not only helping them pull out their own authenticity, but you being authentic, and really coming through and shining through on you, not only your offering, but then who you are and then what you can do to help. So next step is storytelling. If you can tell a story within a piece of content, that is huge. I think we've all maybe seen this story arc in the past, but you got your exposition, right? You're setting the stage, you got some rising action, you got your climax, and then falling action and resolution. So any story that you have ever heard that you've enjoyed, or a movie or a television show, right, follows this formula. It's how we've been telling, stories for thousands of years. Um, so that brand breakdown that we did for Rich, right? I just want to do this for Volkswagen because I'm going to play you a couple commercials. But you can see, Volkswagen does a beautiful job, right? Like they got this like quality aspect to them with the engineering excellence. I don't know if you remember that tagline, that's the power of German engineering. But they're also like the people's car, right? They're 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 approachable. They got that premium feel, but they're yet accessible. So I'm going to play a couple commercials, and let me just play this right here.
Is that me? Was I singing? Not paying for scheduled maintenance? Deals for...
I was just curious, are people hearing the sound in the audio? Oh, perfect. All right.
Yes.
Sometimes you got to check that button, and I thought I didn't check it. All right, let me play.
No charge scheduled maintenance now on every new Volkswagen. That's the power of German engineering.
And then here's another one. Oops.
Last time I touched you. Start to stir. Looks like we're
Now, as short form as those two commercials were, they followed that story arc. And then there were a lot of things at play, right? Like with the first one, there was a sense of nostalgia, right? That ad was actually from 2014. If you think about it, like Gen Xers at that point were well within their, corporate careers. Everybody's been at that boring meeting where you're like, sketching and scribbling. And then also you could sense that there was like some tension, with the guy at the end, and he's daydreaming, racing him, and then dancing with the girl that's at the end of the table at the end. And there's some things, right? Very familiar things, right? If you're a Gen Xer, you watch that video on MTV, you know that experience, bored out of your mind, the rat race of the corporate environment. But so let's look at closer exposition, right? If you were to create something, how do I get at that? Does the context and background resonate with my customers' experiences or desires? Can my customers see themselves in the main characters or the motivations? Have I established a connection between the story and my customers' needs or pain points? And then when you get to rising action, does the main conflict or problem mirror the challenges my customers face? Are the obstacles presented in the story relevant to my customers' experiences? Can my customers empathize with the characters as they navigate these challenges? And then climax. Will my customers feel invested in the outcome of the climax? Can my customers relate to the critical decision or revelation experienced by the main character? Have I demonstrated the value of my product or service in addressing conflict or problem? And then following action, do the consequences of the climax align with my customers' expectations or desires? Can my customers envision themselves resolving or adapting to the conflict in a similar manner? And then have I addressed any concerns or objections my customers might have about my product or service? And what I want to mention, and then resolution too at the end. Does the resolution provide a sense of satisfaction and closure for my customers? Have I shown my product or service can help my customers achieve their goals and overcome challenges? And then does the resolution reinforce the benefits and values of my product or service to my customers? So I just want to mention, the power of narrative, right? Stories can help create connections, engage audience, and convey messages more effectively. The elements again of a good marketing story, relatability, authenticity, and emotional appeal. And I don't want to just state like, hey, this has to be a high-end, big budget commercial, right? This could be just in the way you tell a story of a testimonial with a customer, or when you're putting that testimonial together and maybe you have the opportunity to add some video or get the video testimonial, having that story arc and have the story told in that way, and answering a lot of those questions at those key points in the arc really can help make just an average testimonial feel more compelling, right, and easier to follow and more engaging. And then also by sharing your experiences, challenges, and achievements, you can create a connection with potential clients, partners, and collaborators, making more likely they will remember you and want to work with you. And let's see. Also, just with the story arc, as I mentioned, not only testimonials, but this could also be product demos, those fictitious scenarios that you create, or in collaborations as well. So we, like, for example, with the Kodak piece there with the girl skateboard, we did a really nice landing page explaining the process and how we worked with them and the success of it, and then some of the collaboration and challenges. It was great. Like, it got a lot of engagement, and also it opened up us, right, an old stodgy kind of company, right, to a new audience. So anytime that you can do a collaboration, not only with a customer or maybe a potential partner, it's a great move, right? Because not only is a narrative going to come out of it that's strong, but also at the same time, right, when you collaborate, you're opening yourself up to that person's audience and their customer base. So that was great. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. And if anyone has any questions or anything, please let me know.